What's the absolute worst food you've ever eaten? Did a shot of durian extract mixed with cotton candy Fago. Both of us threw up in the bushes. Hot dog soup. My dad was in a rehab/assisted living facility. He had both me and my sister taste it. We were all super grossed out. It was definition hot dogs, with chunks, but also with pureed hot dogs for the base. My wife would say, pancakes that I accidentally cooked in garlic butter. She hated them. I liked them. Savory pancakes are a thing apparently. I've heard of pancakes minus the sugar with hash browns and onion fried into them topped with sour cream. My grandfather makes them, and they're pretty decent if done right. A brand of frozen pizza. It was just grease molecules, holding hands. Years ago Starbucks did a green tea latte. My mom and I got one to try cause we like green tea. It was toxic. We were emitting fumes that should never come out of a human body. We were riding with the windows down in the middle of winter, it was so bad. When I got to a bathroom, when I was done, what I left behind looked like lawn mulching, after being out in the rain for a week straight with a smell on par with what I imagine the bog of eternal stench smells like. I'm Indian. Had a curry at someone's house who was not Indian. Straight up did not use any spice but salt. Died on the inside. Ancestors physically manifested to voice disapproval. Man, don't go to France. Curry, or extra spicy piquant/Mexican flavor is at best bland tomato with the merest hint of vinegar, and 2 molecules of mild chili. I'm convinced the French are only comfortable with 4 flavors: buttery, very buttery, cheesy, garlicky, with cheesy and buttery undertones. A protein drink flavored Fruity Pebbles, tasted like dish soap. I attended a wedding of my cousin a few years back. They were part of this cult-like Christian sect. The food was not made by a catering company and the whole affair was organized by church members. For dessert they had a mango icebox cake that barely had any cream and was dyed pink for some reason. It had been sitting out for hours under the sun. It was warm, smelled a little funky, and was topped with roasted garlic peanuts. We only ate it to be polite, and because my siblings and I were daring each other to eat it. It tasted just as bad as it sounds. I almost threw up after taking one bite. Fermented shark is pretty bad. It tastes like bleach smells. Goat eye. I was an honored guest at a Bedouin camp and the chieftain honored me by letting me have one of the eyes of a roast goat as he ate the other eye. My stomach does somersaults just remembering it. Liver off a buffet. It had the consistency of dog poop. Natto. It's apparently a Japanese fermented bean dish, but I'm pretty sure it was just someone's slimy sticky barf they saved in a bowl for some reason. It's an acquired taste. I hate it at first, but quite like it on my rice now. The last week or so of school my district only had Chef's Choice printed on the lunch menus. What this meant is they were cleaning out the fridges and wouldn't know what it would be until the day of. My class that fateful day had an early lunch time, so we were some of the first students to find out that lunch was chicken fajitas. They were the worst thing I've ever tasted, and the only thing that's been so bad I stopped after one bite. The chicken was a paste, with about the consistency and color of hummus. The taste was indescribably bad. Everyone was quickly throwing theirs out and either not eating or getting what they could from vending machines. Word was passed along to other classes as they came in, but some kids did not heed the warnings. A delivered pizza with expired mozzarella on it. Didn't know until I took a bite. It had an overwhelming blue cheese taste and musk to it when I only halfway bit into it. Some gourmet stuff right there. I love to try different things, but will never try ballad ever again. Imagine eating a tiny crunchy cartilage monster staring at you as you gulp it down while it swims in a hot tub of vaginal juice left in the sun for days on end. You aren't supposed to be sober when you eat it. This thread is hilarious. Some answers are crazy obscure things I've never heard of and others are everyday items like onions or tomatoes. I guess some of us don't get out much. I also hate the taste of tomatoes. Especially the big ones. I would recommend trying a garden fresh tomato at some point though. It's a whole different version of tomato flavor. One of the main flavor compounds in fresh tomatoes is permanently deactivated once it's cooled down to a certain temperature even once. So store-bought, both refrigerated and shipped unripe commonly, tomatoes are inherently less flavorful than one actually vine-ripened and unchilled. Drunk chocolate milk that turns out to be spoiled. I felt like Bart Simpson when a hose of beer got into his vuvuzela. Edit, grammar. A piece of what would otherwise have been a tasty bit of beef, dipped in way too much numbing oil. Think imbecile. Okay, so. I went to my friend's family's house for Christmas a few years back. They are Chinese, I'm not, and they were having hot pot. My friend was really worried that I wouldn't like it, but I was super excited and was decently sure I'd love it. Before we sat down to eat, he helped me make a dipping sauce. It was mostly sesame oil, with some soy sauce and a few other things. We mixed them, we sat down, and got ready to eat. There were a bunch of different meats, and my friend also pointed out the spicy side and the non-spicy side of the hot pot. I decided to start with the beef, as it was most familiar, and the non-spicy broth. Took a piece, put it in the hot pot, waited until it cooked. Dipped it in my oil dip, and ate it. Immediately I knew something was wrong. I couldn't feel my mouth. I was sure I was having an allergic reaction, despite never having had a food allergy to anything before. I started internally freaking out and basically trying to figure out how I could get away without making a big scene, because it was a lot of people that I did not know and this was also a friend that I had only recently gotten close to. Also, it's just gross. Eating meat when you can't taste it or feel your mouth is awful, especially when you aren't expecting it and think you're probably dying. I also think that the numbing oil has a quite bitter taste, or maybe that's what your taste buds shutting off tastes like. After maybe a minute, which felt like an hour, my friend turned to me and said that there was a lot of numbing oil in the spicy side of the hot pot. Oh my gosh. Relief. His cousin then pointed out that she saw us putting numbing oil, which is apparently a Chinese culinary thing, though usually used sparingly, in our dipping oil, rather than the sesame oil, because my friend mixed up the bottles, so I had essentially coated a piece of beef in a mixture that was like 90% numbing oil. In case anyone wonders why she didn't tell us, it's because my friend is just really weird, and so his cousin assumed that he just liked it that way. Licorice, fennel and anything that smells/tastes the same. How people enjoy that, I literally cannot conceive. There's 345 comments at time of writing, so this probably won't be seen, but last year I was on my high school's robotics team, and they were hosting a potluck type thing, and one of the desserts was a big donut cake. So I think, dang, that looks delicious. I wonder why it's almost entirely untouched, and I take a bite. What do I taste? It tastes like onions. Not kidding. The person who baked it must have used the same pan they made some savory dish in and never cleaned it. Honestly, just the shock of it all pushed it to the top of my disgusting foods list alone. I felt super rude, but I ended up just throwing it in a garbage can. Bull testicle. I actually loved it. We were at my grandpa's in Switzerland and he cooked it in gravy. I had second and thirds. Then I asked what it was, and dad said bull balls. I didn't finish the plate. Haha, I always remember to ask now. Cow udders is ducked as well. My dad always try and make me eat ducked crab. Ballot. Edit, depends on how developed the fetus is, and what it's cured. Indiana, 1000 year or 500 year eggs that are cured in urine are the absolute worst. Ballot tastes like 90% hard boiled egg and 10% fetus. Oh boy, that without a shred of doubt would be the Christmas dinner 2017. That whole ordeal is best described as clusterfuck of gargantuan proportions. I was invited by my best friend at the time to spend Christmas with her and her family. While most of her family is a delight to be around, her father isn't. So we were invited for a dinner by him and his girlfriend. The meal composition was interesting to say the least. And with interesting I mean interesting as a car standing upright on a dumpster fire. It was weird. There was roasted goose, red cabbage, dumplings, and lasagna. And every single dish was ducked. Now I know goose is a fatty bird, but I have no idea on how they got it burnt without being crispy, bone dry but with congealed fat all around. The dumplings, German style bread dumplings in theory, were dry and hard on the inside, but chewy on the outside like a piece of rubber. The cabbage was not only boiled until annihilation, but also extremely over-seasoned with malt spice mix. Up to this day I feel violated thinking about eating one fork of that stuff. And the lasagna? Not only completely out of place on that table, it had the consistency of a water corpse. I never thought you could have pasta with less structural integrity than Jello. Oh, and it was also cold. The hosts. He almost breathed his food, complimenting constantly, while I contemplated about lobotomy via silverware. She didn't eat a single bite of the stuff she made. I like to think that I possess resilience regarding culinary experience as well as mental attacks. But after that whole extravaganza of experimental cuisine, or a new kind of white torture, there was about 40 minutes of violent cursing while driving home, and half a bottle of vodka not necessary to stomach, pun intended, that Jesus Christ was that horrible. I know there is a certain segment of Reddit who is not going to like this answer, but 35 years ago I ate Vegemite at a Foods of the World festival. It was the single most foul thing I have ever eaten. It has been 35 years and I can still taste it, if I think about it. Seconds after putting it in my mouth I was puking into a trash can. Shit is nasty, and I don't see how anyone willingly eats it. But, more for everyone else, I guess. Thick white crusty bread toasted, Le Pack butter on thick, tiny scrape of Vegemite over it, heaven. As the guest of honor at a dinner in Hong Kong, I was served up both the 2-inch eyes of a very large, cooked, cod type fish with about 50 people watching me eat them. Horrible fishy gelatinous balls of foulness. A close second is sashimi prawn in a Tokyo restaurant. When I said I'd try some, I should have noticed them swimming quite happily in the tank behind the chefs. They fished out a big one, and with a couple of slices with a razor sharp knife, the head, shell, legs and poop chute was gone, and the still quivering body was flicked onto my plate. I figured if I chewed it enough, it couldn't reconstitute in my stomach. After reading these types of replies, I can only assume being a guest of honor means let's duck with this westerner. Like, they have to know we don't eat fish eyeballs.